like whatever you suppress will be expressed. So whatever you're suppressing emotionally, mentally, psychologically, spiritually, it's like it's going to get expressed through relationships, through business, through, you mentioned leadership is something that you help a lot of your clients with. I've got a great mentor I'm working with at the moment. He says you can only lead others externally to the depth that you've journeyed yourself internally. So whatever shit is still unprocessed, that's in your nervous system, in your mind, in your subconscious, things that trigger you, things that you shame yourself for, all of those things is what gets just experienced from others. Because you can say the right words, but as you said, it's the emotional body that carries that impact and that authenticity and that connection. And if you want to be a better leader, it's like work on yourself more, like work on you and being able to be the full spectrum of who you are.
What's up, and welcome to another episode of the Fathers, Sons, Brothers podcast. I appreciate you spending some time with us today, and super excited to be recording this in South Africa. I am back home after almost 7 years of exploring the world, and it feels really good to be back here. I've spent some time in Cape Town. I'm currently on the garden route, spending some time with family, and yeah, it feels great to be sharing today's conversation with you. And before I introduce my guest to you today, I just want to let you know, if you are in South Africa, I have a few events that are on the calendar for my time here. And the first of those is going to be on the 24th of April in Cape Town. I am co-creating an event with a business partner. Her name's Alex. And the event is called Finding Your Authentic Voice. And this is really a half-day in-person workshop that we're going to be doing to help creators that are looking to share their unique gift with the world by getting clear on understanding who it is that you're speaking to and knowing what it is that's yours to share. And so this really is for the type of person that we call a soulpreneur, somebody that wants to get paid for doing their life's work or for sharing something that you feel is going to be helping to heal as a function of the journey that you've already walked. So you might already be on the path, perhaps as a coach or a healer already, and you need some support in understanding exactly how to get your message out into the world. Or perhaps you know that this is something that you want to do. Maybe you feel like you've got a book inside you, or you want to speak from a stage, and you're not 100% sure what to do next. Make sure that you check out the event called Finding Your Authentic Voice. I'll link up all the details in the show notes of this. It's going to happen live in Cape Town. So if you are going to be in and around Cape Town on the 24th of April, and you are looking to bring your magic to the world and get paid to do that inside the wisdom economy, wisdom being the gifts and lessons that you've integrated in your own life, taking that back out into the world and supporting and serving others, make sure that you're at this event. Details will be in the show notes. From there, I am going to be going to Africa Burn. This is South Africa's version of Burning Man. I went for the first time in 2016. I absolutely loved it. It's an incredible, incredible experience. And if you have any plans to go to Africa Burn, make sure that you reach out with me via Instagram. It's @GarethPickering. Let me know that you're going to be there, and I will let you know where I'm going to be hosting and holding men's circles on the playa. That means the main section of the burn. And I'm really excited to be sharing the men's work magic with men that are back home here in South Africa. Guest from the podcast, Leonard Lowe, he was in one of our earlier episodes. The title of that episode was From CEO to Sex Coach. He is also the same brother that I ran the legendary Lover Method program with. Him and I are both going to be at Africa Burn, and we're going to be holding men's circles on the playa. If you're going to be at Africa Burn this year, let me know. Reach out to me on socials, and I'll let you know where you can join us, either for a bit of a dance in the desert, or if you're in a male body and want to come to our men's circles, reach out to me and I will let you know where we're going to be hosting our men's circles and what days that's going to be. Then a couple of weeks after Africa Burn finishes, from the 16th till the 18th of May, Leonard and myself are going to be holding a men's weekend in Citrusdale. This is a super powerful Friday evening to Sunday afternoon. So evenings on Friday, all day Saturday, and a half day on Sunday. There's going to be about 15 of us that are going to be camping out in this amazing farm with a waterfall on. We're going to be doing some integration work and some deep diving into some of the themes that we've found that have been the most prevalent for men that we've both worked with. Leonard has been on this journey for, I think it's over a decade now, of supporting men around relationship and sexuality. My work is also around relationship and leadership. And I'm really excited to be doing some in-person work. I love being online. I love that you get to listen to this podcast or watch the show wherever you're watching it. But it doesn't replace the magic that happens when men come together and sit together around a circle in person and connect to this ancient technology of men's work that we used to have in our world many years ago. So if you're going to be in and around Cape Town, Citrusdale is about 2 hours from Cape Town, and I will share the details of that weekend. It's going to be the 16th till the 18th of May, 2025, depending on when you listen to this. And I would be really, really jazzed to connect with you in person if that feels like it's aligned. Even if you live in Johannesburg, it'll be worth driving down for any of those events. And if you're passing through, let me know. If you're in South Africa, I also have a trip to Johannesburg potentially on the cards, and it would be great to connect with you in person. So all the details for those events will be in the show notes. So for today's episode, we are talking to Lewis Huckstep. One of the aims of this podcast is to have the conversations that support men to be better lovers and to be better leaders. And this episode is an absolute game changer when it comes to the content and the nature of the guest that I'm interviewing today. Lewis is a transformational coach. He is an author of the book called The Inspired Life Method, which I've read. It's amazing. Some of the content that he touches on in this episode, he goes into a full process that you can use to understand some of the challenges that might be holding you back in your life by going through this process called the Inspired Life Method in his book. I'll link up a link to the book in the show notes as well. He's coached over 6,000 people, and by the age of 22, he already owned 3 successful gyms, and he is a ninja when it comes to understanding personal development, and he has a real gift in being able to take difficult concepts and break them down and explain them in a super simple way. He speaks to some of the magic that he has learned, having worked with 6,000 people, but also having studied multiple modalities, different healing modalities, and integrated those into his own body of work that he speaks about on his channel, in this episode, and in his book. We also get into the challenges that him and I have both worked through on our journeys to getting paid to do our purpose work. Much like I spoke about earlier, the soulpreneur, this journey of knowing what is your unique gift to bring, and then showing up in the world with the right messaging to attract the right type of person that you can also get paid to do the work that matters most to you, is sometimes a more challenging endeavor than perhaps you may think. Sometimes it's easier to go out there like I did and start an advertising agency and go out into the world and get paid to do something. But when it's your unique journey that you've integrated and worked into your own life and started to heal, and then move out into the world and use that as a business, it can become quite challenging to ask for money. And both Lewis and I share our journeys of how we've battled with this in our lives. And if you're on that path, make sure you check out this episode, because it's really, really powerful, sort of like a post game on exactly how we're working through those individual themes in our own lives. Lewis and I also speak about the power of why transformation doesn't happen until somebody makes an investment in themselves. And I've seen this in my own journey, as well as working with multiple different clients over the last decade that I've been doing this work. The importance of making sure that you're actually invested energetically, emotionally, financially, spiritually into the path that you say yes to. It's such an important part of the journey for you to be able to see the results that you're looking for in your life. Lewis is a master. At the end, towards the end of this episode, he actually does one of his processes on me to help me reverse engineer a story or a loop that I was stuck in. And when you get to that stage, you may want to re-listen to it and make some notes so that you can actually use this process on yourself to recognize anywhere in your life you might be looping or stuck in a story. And Lewis you can use that process in your own life to help you integrate whatever it is that you're stuck on and move forward and break through. So without any more yabba dabba dabba do from me, I'm really excited to introduce today's guest, Lewis Huckstep. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to the show, brother.
Brother, thank you for having me. I'm excited to connect you You resonate, and you've got a lot of vibes similar to a lot of friends that are in my circle. So I'm excited to connect with you, man, and have a good chat.
Thanks, man. How do you define those vibes?
There's one person in particular. You might get him on the podcast, and you might see yourself in him a lot. His name's Scott. He's a breathwork facilitator and is a men's coach. So just your
Uh-huh.
energy, your presence, your aura. It's very similar to him, man. So he's yeah, just very loving, very nurturing. But there's a lot of strength and power underneath the surface as well, from what I can tell.
Stoked, brother. I've been following you for a couple of years, and when Tony connected us, I was really excited to have this conversation. And I think we said before we pressed record, yeah, I see so much overlap in what you're doing, and the relationship that you spoke about before we pressed record was like this place between like inner work and outer work. So maybe we can kick off there and share how that fits into maybe your personal journey and how you see that in the people that you coach. Like, what is the relationship between inner work and outer work, and how do they play together?
Yeah, beautiful, man. There's so many different angles on that. There's you don't see things the way they are. You see things the way you are. From Wayne Dyer, I use that quite often, and it's like if you whatever problems, challenges, roadblocks, conflict, resistance, triggers, whatever's happening in your external world, it's always a projection from what's happening underneath the surface. And as we said before we click record, at my events, I like to take the piss out of my spiritual mates because I'm in spiritual circles. I've done the medicines. I just came from a 2-day event where it's all spiritual people, and I'm like the most sort of non-spiritual person there. And in that spiritual side of the spectrum, those people are very present, conscious, doing their breath. They're connecting with source. They're doing the medicines. They're so conscious and levitating, meditating all day,
Mm-hmm.
but without actually the skills and practicality of the 3D world we live in. Those people are often very broke, and they're so disconnected from the world that we live in,
Mm-hmm.
practically speaking. And then on the other side of the spectrum, where I started my journey, is the I call them the hustle porn people, where it's just like hustle, 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 grind, 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 achieve, 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 and it's always about external achievements to try achieve externally to fulfill yourself internally. And you would know this better than most. It doesn't work that way. It's the mirage that I'll be happy when, and that was me for a long time. And my work essentially is integrating those two together. It's coming back to knowing who you truly are, what your life's purpose is, what your values are, what's intrinsically fulfilling to who you are. Getting clear on what are the actual practical skills to put that together. Because far as I know, you can't pay your landlord with gratitude. You got to pay them with money. You got to pay them with like the things that they actually want, right?
Right.
That normally gets a laugh at the crowd. And then I'm also probably, if I had to sort of circle my favorite topic, it's removing the blocks, the wounds, the traumas, the limitations that would stop you from actually taking the action. Because yes, you need the skills. It's like Tony Robbins says, 80% psychology, 20% strategy. The
Mm-hmm.
strategy in essence for most things is not that complicated. Like I just came from the gym, just trained just before. To be relatively healthy, it's not that complicated. Like you train consistently, get your macros right, get some sleep, drink some water. Like if you just do those basic things, you're going to be
Right.
relatively healthy. But why do so many people struggle with it? It's their trauma, it's their conditioning, it's their limitation, it's all this stuff that's happening on the internal world. So I like to blend all those things together where I get clear on who you are, what's your life's purpose, what's your vision, what's your mission, what's your soul's values, what is it that you truly desire? What does a dream life look like for you? If you wake up and actually do what you love what you do, and be inspired by the life you've created, what do you actually need to get out to do in this practical world to bring that to life?
Mm-hmm.
And then let's remove those blocks, because if you have the skills, you know who you are. Without doing the inner work, that's where you hit the glass ceiling, you get in your own way, you sabotage. Those are common words that people throw around. And you don't know what you don't know. This is where I always do my best to start with empathy with my clients. It's like you can't be held accountable to something you're not aware of. If you keep sabotaging your relationships, you keep getting triggered by your partner, you keep wanting to do like post content. Like when I first started, it was one for me as well. It's like wanting to post content, but you're so scared of people's judgment because underneath the surface, you've got trauma from judgment and being invalidated or whatever the thing is. It's
Mm-hmm.
like you don't know what you don't know. So I like to bring that awareness to people. My purpose is to heal and raise consciousness. So I want to bring awareness to people, raise their level of awareness and consciousness so that it's like with great power comes great responsibility. Once you become aware of it, it's now up to you to actually lean into it. And that often takes a lot of courage and strength to do that. That's kind of the first part of your question. Second part of your question of me, my journey, I got diagnosed with Asperger's, autism, ADHD, and anxiety when I was really young, and had my trauma growing up with mum and dad, and just being physically, mentally, emotionally unsafe, hurt, abused. I share a story in my book about dad punching down a door to get into my brother. And then I became an overachiever. I learned how do I like Tony Robbins' question from his documentary right at the end. He says, "Who did you need? Which parent did you crave love from the most?" Mine was dad. And he says, "Who did you need to be for that parent?" And mine was an achiever. I will get love from him if I overachieve. And that also comes from my wounds of being invalidated, not being enough, being unworthy, being unseen, being unheard, all those things. And that set me on the overachiever pathway. And I opened 3 gyms by the age of 22. I built a 6-figure network marketing business when I was 19. I just everything I did, I just went all in and just like I had to achieve, not for internal reasons, for external reasons. And that led me to burnout. I hit a breaking point. I gave one of my gyms away. I sold another one. And then I ended up hiring myself out of the 3rd gym when I was 24 or 25. And I was earning 2 to 3 grand a week with a business running without me. And I had more time and space to lean into what I truly love, which was purpose, mission, vision, values, healing, all the stuff we're talking about now. And I've been going all in on that for about 3 years now. I was coaching people mentally and emotionally through the gyms. I've got like heaps of funny stories. Like people would come down for proteins and calories, and the sort of the trainee side of things, but would end up unpacking all their childhood shit at the goal setting consult, which is really funny. But I just always loved it because it's what I'm passionate about. It's what my purpose is. It's what I really love doing. And now I'm on a mission to bring that to the world through my book, through my content, through my in-person events, from my online programs. I'm just trying to give my medicine and my gift to as many people as I can. And that's where I am today.
So good, dude. How do you, was it just inherently available to you that that supporting people was going to be part of your mission? Like, was that always true for you? Like, or did you need to get to that breaking point, or did you see it starting to come through your work that you were doing in the gyms? Like, or do you just wake up one day and be like, this is it? Like, how did that unfold for you? I know this is what you also guide clients with, but I'd like to know for you specifically.
Yeah, perfect. It's so the sort of coachy answer is like your purpose is an expression of your greatest core wound. So whatever was most painful for you becomes most important to you. What was most like pain becomes purpose, wounds become wisdom. So the seeds that were planted for me was in childhood, was being mentally, emotionally, feeling rejected, hurt, and misunderstood. That's my core wound. So if you heal and express that, I like to heal hurt people. I like making people feel seen and understood. And I love to help people feel accepted, loved, and increase their level of awareness. And if you look at all the work that I do, that's all that I do. So that's where the seeds were planted many years ago. So I have a purpose process where I guide people to find that faster just by asking the right questions. But if you just honestly follow your inspiration, whatever you get inspired by, whatever you're interested in, whatever you get a tear of inspiration by doing, where those are the breadcrumbs of the universe. So if you just become aware of those and you actually just unconsciously or consciously follow that, you'll actually end up doing your purpose. You just unconsciously, it led you there. So it's like people that actually have a career or they're doing a business and it actually lights their soul on fire. I did this process with, I was on a podcast actually. I posted the reel to it, I think like 2 days ago. It's doing quite well. And I did the purpose process on the podcast with the host. And I went through and she's she helps women love their bodies, be accepted, self-love, confidence, because she felt. And then we did the purpose process on the podcast, and her core wound was feeling rejected, ugly, not accepted, not enough, and unloved. And it's like, and it was cool in the podcast. She's like, holy shit, I'm actually doing all of that right now through the podcast. I'm like, that's why you love doing your podcast, because you're actually fulfilled by it. So if you follow what you're inspired by, you'll actually get there eventually. The purpose process I like to take people through just speeds that up. So you get to define it, you get to get clear on it, you can get, it just gives you a deeper depth of understanding of what it is. So I get roundabout answer to your question is that those were the seeds that were planted. I pursued fitness. That's where that was my background. Sport was my outlet when I grew up. And I started fitness because that's what I knew. It's like those questions I share in the book. It's like, what do you want to do when you're older? I'm like, I don't fucking know. I don't know what I want to do when I'm older. It's like, you just don't get taught that. I didn't get taught what's your purpose. Go fulfill your purpose. Make money doing your purpose. I wish we got taught that at school. So I did personal training. That's where I started, as I said before. And I started that because you just do the best of what you have at the time. And I was always drawn to it. Like I did Tony Robbins when I was 18, and like doing his limiting belief process and personal transformation. I'm like, holy shit, this is amazing. This is really cool. And then, I just kept adding to that toolkit. I did DeMartini, Wayne Dyer, Tony Robbins, like I said, Joe Dispenza, Peter Crone, just all these incredible mentors. And self-transformation was always like the common theme that I always enjoyed doing, because I felt like I was weird, I was broken, there was something wrong with me. You're autistic, you've got Asperger's, you've got this condition, you've got all this trauma, there's something wrong with you. So being able to break through those constraints and those wounds and those limitations always fascinated me. It's always what I enjoyed, because it was painful. It becomes meaningful and purposeful for me. So the whole journey, unconsciously, I was moving towards it. And then when I got clear on my body of work, being able to actually sit with it, feel it, understand it, and then prioritize it and live a life living it, it's so good. So the gyms kind of segued me into it, because I said it before. There's this one client that stood out. I had this client. She came down for a 7-day trial for the gym, and she comes down and we do like a goal setting session where we go through their goals, and it's very like, normally it's like, this is how much macros, how much protein you need, how many calories you need, la la la, like very like sort of fitnessy answer.
Yeah.
And she, one of my gifts is making people feel safe to be vulnerable and to open up and to share what's going on. And she ended up telling me that her husband had committed suicide 3 months earlier, and she hadn't spoken to anyone about it, like people in a close circle, but no one to actually help her through it. And 90 minutes later, we had processed, not the whole thing, but we'd done a lot of healing and processing through that. And she came down for calories and protein. So she signed up for the membership. Let's put it that way. But those were like, a lot of my conversations would unconsciously or consciously lead towards that. It's like, yes, here's the training program, here's the macros, here's what you get. Awesome, let's go. But how are you really? What's going on? Like I can feel a little bit of tension. How are you? It's like, I'm not sure if it's like that in your country, but in our country, it's like, how are you? Yeah, not bad. It's like, okay, well, how are you really? If you're not bad, how are you? How are you really? And I always like to go a little bit deeper. And I think you'd have this gift as well, brother. You'd be able to feel like what people say and what you feel from them are two different answers. You're like, yeah, I'm good. You're like, really? Like, if you're okay speaking into that, I can feel a little bit of tension with you. What's going on? Is everything okay? And I always loved going into those conversations, because it's what I didn't have. You become who you needed when you're at your lowest. That's what I didn't have. So
Say that again. You become what you needed
you
when
become
you're
who
at your
you needed when you're at your lowest. So
good.
that's essentially another way of saying purpose. Your
Right.
greatest core wound is what was most painful for you in your upbringing. And there'll be a theme to find what that is. And you
Yeah.
become that person. So I needed to feel safe. I needed to heal. I needed to understand who I was, because I got told all these limitations of all these constraints and labels that kept me stuck, and I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted. And I just lacked my nervous system was really dysregulated. Mum shares this funny story. My first day at kindergarten. I don't know if you guys have kindergarten in your school. It's like
Preschool.
year
Yeah.
one. It's like the year before year one. And she said the school called her saying, you have to come down and grab your son. He's going crazy. And I can't remember this. I don't have this memory, but apparently she drives down to the school, and I'm in there. She walks in and I'm pulling the teacher's hair out, screaming and freaking out, because my gift of being having Asperger's is I didn't understand people. I didn't understand social dynamics, and I was just like really dysregulated and unsafe, and I was just freaking out. So I had a really dysregulated nervous system growing up. So I've also got I'm a breathwork facilitator. I add that into my toolkit. I love it. Before you click record, you took a big breath in. So it's like I've become that person that I needed when I was at my lowest, and now I give that gift back to others who have those similar wounds and those similar pain points that I can help them with. So for people that come to me, it's generally they're lost, they don't know who they are, they're sort of floating through life, they're unfulfilled. Maybe they are achieving externally, but they're not fulfilled internally. So that's all the purpose and lack of understanding your true self. Or maybe they're super triggered, they're sabotaging, they're struggling to relate in relationships. That's where relationships are the biggest magnifying glass to your inner work. Whatever you haven't healed, it's like
sure.
I quote that I haven't shared in a while. It's if you don't address your unhealed traumas, your relationship will do it for you. I absolutely love that. So
yeah, it's great.
so I do a lot of relationship stuff. I have people come to me. I don't call myself a relationship coach. I don't think that's really my mastery, but the work I do is amplified in relationships. Absolutely.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know what your question was to start with, but I hope that answered it.
You got it. There was something in what you shared there which was so true for me, which I recognize I was born in South Africa. I currently live in Guatemala, but I've noticed there's that part of like, you described it as, how are you? Fine, thanks. Or I'm okay. Which, it really doesn't get down to what's genuinely alive inside the animal body or the nervous system. And, we live in these meat suits that are so incredibly complicated and have an amazing ability to be able to read what's actually happening underneath the words. And, the work that I've been doing inside my men's circles is calling men forward and asking them to speak about what's authentically alive, because most of us are not trained in that. We're trained in the opposite, to just pretend shit's okay when it's not. And what I've noticed is that when I have got to this place of really speaking out what's genuinely alive for me, which sometimes feels like a step away from the nature of how I used to speak about stuff, which was just, masking and all of that stuff, I actually start to trust myself more, because something in the animal body is like, he's able to speak about what's genuinely alive in me. So that's the first step. When I take that and then speak to the people that I love with the same level of authenticity, like speaking where my words match my energy, suddenly the person gets it. They're like, I get it. If you and I went for beers and you asked me how things were going, I was having a shit day and I was like, oh, fuck, Lewis doesn't want to hear this. I'm good, mate. Some part of you can feel that it's not good, but my words don't match my energy. And without even realizing it, you just don't trust me. You're like, something's up with that dude. I can't tell what it is. And then we wonder why our relationships are broken and we have difficult business transactions, because we can't speak authentically what's alive in our emotional body to the people that we love and trust so much. It's pretty nuts when I think about it.
Yeah, something that came up as you're talking, it's like whatever you suppress will be expressed. So whatever you're suppressing emotionally, mentally, psychologically, spiritually, it's like it's going to get expressed through relationships, through business, through, you mentioned leadership is something that you help a lot of your clients with. It's like I've got a great mentor I'm working with at the moment. He says you can only lead others externally to the depth that you've journeyed yourself internally. So whatever shit is still unprocessed, that's in your nervous system, in your mind, in your subconscious, things that trigger you, things that you shame yourself for,
Yeah.
like the list goes on. All of those
Yeah.
things is what gets just experienced from others, because you can say the right words, but as you said, it's the emotional body that carries that impact and that authenticity and that connection. And if you want to be a better leader, it's like work on yourself more, like work on you and being able to be the full spectrum of who you are, the vulnerable
Yeah.
part, but also, and obviously there's a time for leadership where it's time to be strong and firm and confident and lead the way
Yeah.
and hold people accountable, all those things. But
Uh-huh.
it's like to really trust someone and really understand someone, it's being able to see that all those sides of that person. It's been able to, and not, by the way, I'm not saying just go cry to your team the whole time, but it's been able to be vulnerable when the time is right to show that you are a human and you've got your own stuff that you're still processing. And then that allows that person to hopefully give them a bit more permission for them to speak up about what's going on. And then you, as a coach or a leader or whatever's going on, can help that person work on that. Because as much as like I've done a couple in-person talks for businesses, and it's one of the titles of my work was I can't remember the title of it, but the theme of it was your professional life is an expression of your personal life. Like you can say that quote, like leave your shit at work, leave your shit at home. I
Mm-hmm.
agree to some points. Don't bring your shit and then project onto your clients. But why
Right.
not have a culture where you're actually okay saying, hey, look, I'm actually struggling a little bit with this, and just I'm not going to let it
Mm-hmm.
affect my work, but I just want to let you know that's what's happening for me right now. And
Yeah.
having the right people around you where you can actually say, you know what, thank you for being vulnerable. Here's this. How can I support you? A question one of the most common questions I ask clients and friends and loved ones is, do you need support or challenge from me? Because we need both. Sometimes as a man, it's good to
Mm.
be get a kick right up the ass and say, step up, lean into it, have courage. And then there's sometimes to say, hey brother, like I'm here for you, bro. Like it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to
Such a good
feel. It's
question.
okay to struggle. It's okay to. So it's that balance, and a great coach, in my opinion, knows how to dance on that line really well. Like sometimes I'm
Mm.
super empathetic, and I'm like, I love you, and I cry with my clients, and I hold space for my clients. And sometimes I say, step the fuck up. It's like you're
Yeah.
saying you know what to do now. You've got the awareness. It's not like you're
Yes.
oblivious to it. You just need to have the courage to step into the fire and do that with the fear present. So again, I don't know
That's
where
like
that came
that's
from.
like loving father, loving mother, right? You're basically integrating those two elements of masculine
Absolutely.
and feminine. The masculine is like, step forward, brother. I see you. It's time to fucking go out and go for a run. The feminine is like, okay, you actually need to be held in this space, and there's something in that which is, yeah, bro, so good. The other thing, which before we jumped on here, you were asking me like the nature of my work, and I said relationship and leadership being so similar. I haven't had this. You can only lead others externally to the extent that you've done your internal work, or something to that effect. In the relationship piece, it's almost exactly the same. I believe that you can only receive love to the extent that you've able to love yourself. So, like if I love myself to a 6 and I manifest a partner who loves themselves to an 8, those last two pieces are going to be completely overwhelming for me, and they're going to potentially like overlove me, or I can't accept their love to the capacity that I haven't been able to love myself in that way. So good to hear the, I guess it was there, I just didn't have that. So thank you for sharing that. That's so good.
I love. I think I've done probably 50 podcasts now as a guest, and I love having people that can pitch and catch like you, man. Like you're not just nodding your head and just asking the questions. It's landing for you. So thank you for reflecting it back to me, because sometimes I think I talk too quick and people don't understand what I just said. So thank you for reflecting back to me, brother. Appreciate that.
Bro, you've got so much. Like I've listened to a few of your podcasts and I've seen your stuff on social, and like, yeah, amazing. Like there's so much clarity in your work, and yeah, I can see that you've rehearsed it so many times. Like the content is really well put together, and your framework and your book is so well laid out as well. I want to come back to something that you said earlier. You said something like, I have a superpower of making people feel safe. How do you articulate that for somebody who wants to cultivate more of that? Because I think that is a genuine superpower in relationship and leadership and life in general. How do you make others feel safe?
Yeah, it's. I've been asked this once before, and I can't remember my answer to it. So I'm gonna sit with it right now.
Mm.
My answer is, it's always a reflection of you. It's always a projection of you. So how safe are you feeling within yourself? Because if you're like super triggered and dysregulated, you're probably not going to make anyone feel safe, right? So that's where it comes back to always working on self and making sure that you're taking your own medicine. I did an event yesterday, and just a line that stood out to me: the shaman drinks the medicine too. So make sure you're always drinking
Yeah.
your own medicine as well. So
Yeah.
just make sure it's always a check-in with you. So always regulates self. So whether it's some breath, some grounding, you're practicing your work, you're keeping the channel clear, you're always just keeping the vessel strong. So always work on you and maintain your own self. For me, it's whatever the really ties into the other bodies of my work is the parts that you judge in others is a projection of you. So if you're struggling to hold space, is because there's probably a level of judgment or projection that's going on right now. This person's
Mm-hmm.
been weak. This person's been a victim. This person's been whatever the words or traits are. For me, trauma is a behavior or a trait. Someone did something or didn't do something that was painful. So if you're struggling to hold space, there's probably a level of judgment that's coming within you. Like, this person should be better by now. This person, why is this person so emotional? Why is this person la 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 la? And there's all these projections coming up. And that's the mirror to you. Wherever you have resistance or triggers or projections, or resistance is the word that I think categorizes it all well. Wherever you have resistance towards anyone or anything, there's something for you to address, to integrate, to heal through that you haven't worked on. So for me, to circle back to your question, it would be checking with self and just, how's your nervous system right now? Oh, I'm reading. I'm getting ready for parenthood and fatherhood in the next sort of 12 months or so. So I'm starting to read like parenting books and stuff like that. And something that really stood out to me was, because as you heard, my nervous system growing up, a child between the ages, I think it wasn't 0 to 7, because I know that's the imprint zone, but I think it was 0 to 4 or 5. Children literally lack the capacity to regulate themselves. They can't regulate their own nervous system. So like, if you go to a child and say, just calm down, you're telling them to do something they can't do. So you need to literally co-regulate that child with your nervous system, with your presence, with your breath, to calm them down, right? So that really stood out to me. So it's been able to help regulate self, which would then regulate the person that you're talking to and hold in that safe space. Be aware of any projections in that person. What are you judging that person for? Are they being weak? Are they being a victim? Are they being too much? Are they being emotional? What's the part within them that you're judging, because that's actually a part of you haven't worked on? And I'd say last piece that I would throw into the mix would be your own bandwidth and your own threshold of how much you can tolerate. Because the more your level of threat, your level of success will reflect your capacity to hold projections from others. So it's like, how much can you hold? It's another way of saying handling people's opinions and caring about people's opinions. But it's like, how much can you hold? So I've just stepped into my current edge of growth right now is in-person events. So I've done a lot of online stuff. I wrote the book, as you referred to earlier. And in-person events is like a new edge for me, especially selling from stage, because all of the projections of like being a salesperson, all those things come up for me. So it's how it's like exposure therapy. How much can you handle? So what I posted a video, I think 2 days ago, and it was around, you're being too emotional is one of the weakest things a man can say. Now, that's not just men, that is also women as well. But what I mean by that, and then I reframe it, I say, what that person's saying in that sentence is, I don't have the emotional capacity to handle the fullness of you. So it's like
Right.
that quote, a calm ocean never made a great sailor. So it's like, how
Exactly.
much have you handled, and can you handle? A stable mountain can handle any storm that passes through. So if and that's a bit of a self awareness. It's like, say someone is like in a trauma response and they're yelling and screaming and freaking out. Maybe like you've never done that before and that's overwhelming for you. And maybe you just got to do the best of what you can and get through that storm. But
Hmm.
the next time you do that, if you self reflect and you keep working on yourself, you'll be able to handle that more. You'll be able to. I use like interval training as an example for exposure therapy. So you go to the gym, you never been to the gym before, you last 20 seconds, then you need to take a break, recover, recharge, then go back, you
Yeah.
last 30 seconds. Then you come back,
Yeah.
recharge, regenerate, realign, go for 40 seconds. So I think a bit of exposure therapy, honestly, to increase your threshold and capacity, or I'm thinking of another window of tolerance. That's the word I'm trying to find. So it's your
Yeah.
window of tolerance of how much can you actually handle of people being emotional, people opening up, and all those things. So I think a bit of practice, honestly, to summarize that last point, is just practice it. Just be okay with it, and just learn to speak. It's always easier in hindsight when you get triggered, because when they're triggered, they're probably going to trigger you often.
Hmm.
But then reflect on that. Find, okay, what is it within them that triggered me? Get to go heal through that and work through that. Regulate your nervous system, and yeah, practice. Those would be the three pieces I'll throw into that.
Hey, FSB crew, a quick message to say 97% of you who watch or consume this podcast are not subscribed. Subscribing to the show really supports us to be able to grow and reach more people, as well as include and improve the quality and caliber of guests that we have on this show. Our goal is to get this number down to 70%. And so if you have ever received any value from the content and conversations on this podcast, please consider subscribing. It really supports us and the work that we're doing. Now, back to the show.
I've heard you speak quite a lot about like emotional resilience, like developing this capacity to do this. So what are some practical ways that somebody could actually be able to expand their ability to be able to receive emotions or process more emotions? How do you develop emotional resilience?
Yeah. Firstly, the more work you do, it's like there's kind of two ends of the spectrum. One is like the more exposure you have to it, the more you can handle. There's truth to that, but there's also it's learning to process and heal through whatever you're currently holding, because whatever shit you're still holding right now, every trauma, wound, limitation is within your mind, but also in your nervous system. It's right now circulating your nervous system. So there's a current level of tension within everyone right now. It's like that example, like I've heard it a couple of times. If you hold out a glass of water with your arms stretched out, it's
Yeah.
not that heavy. But if you wait a day, a week, a month, a year, 5 years, 20 years, it gets heavy eventually. So
Yeah.
those are the things we haven't processed yet. So the more you heal through your stuff and do inner work and heal and process and using whatever modality that you choose, hopefully using one that processes it properly. We can talk about that later. But it's been out every time you do that, you let go of that, you put that cup down, metaphorically speaking. Like then you've got that extra strength and capacity to handle more. So it's like you're holding so much weight. There's that there's a metaphor example, like you're holding onto a rope and it's like burning your hand, it's really heavy and it's like weighing you down. It's like, why don't you just let go? Just let go of
Hmm.
it. And then you're like, oh, that feels so much better. And then you've got that
Yeah.
extra weight. Joe Dispenza uses the you're siphoning your energy out of yourself. So say you've got all this shit you haven't worked on, you're still resentful towards mum, dad, childhood, whatever stuff, resistance you haven't worked on yet. All of that energy that goes towards them through thoughts, through feelings, through triggers, through whatever's circulating through you, you are
Yeah.
literally siphoning your energy, your creative energy, your self, and everything that you can create. You're siphoning that out of the present moment back to that person. So there's literally an emotional cord between you and mum or dad or whoever the person is you haven't healed through yet. So every time you heal, you sever one of those cords. And you then take back that energy to then work on and handle more shit and handle more stuff. So um, yeah, so that's kind of probably those two. They're kind of the opposite side of the same coin. It's like the support and challenge comes back to the sort of feminine masculine balance. It's like
Yep.
work on yourself, love yourself, work on you, and sever those wounds, and also not sever those wounds, sever the cords that are siphoning your energy from your wounds you haven't healed through yet. And then also learn to have that scar tissue of showing up and exposing yourself and stretching yourself and expanding your tolerance by actually doing things that are challenging. So it's that dichotomy of those both ends. And some people have learned to be, and probably men as a generalization, are probably more on the just harden up and do more work and stretch yourself more, rather than that nurturing, loving, like it's okay to actually sit down and process this shit so you don't have to keep carrying these weights through life. And so, yeah, they're probably the two ends to that question.
So good. There's something in that for me, like some of my work has to do with the idea of manifestation, or understanding how we're creating our reality in every single moment. And the sense of, we have this projected idea of time, like we have a past that seems to be behind us, and we've got a future of things that want to come ahead of us. And our imagination is what we project into the future, and our memories are what we bring from the past. And, if we are, but both of those happen in the present moment. Both of those happen right now. And so if we're in this place of recognizing, I think you said something about you don't see the world as it is, you see it as you are. The same is true for what you call into your life. You don't attract what you want or what you need into your life, you attract what you are. And if you're holding on to stories in the past, it sets your vibration in the present, which creates a future reality that looks very similar to the past. And so that emotional resilience that you're speaking to, not only, there is something about doing the work, but if you can come back and find a place of love for the challenge that you've had in the past, whether it's from your parents or from a past lover, or even from things or digressions of myself in my past, if I can love that version of myself, it really actually rewrites my future as a function of integrating that version of the past, because I now have the capacity to be able to expand into something new in the future. But if we don't know that that's happening, we genuinely loop in those stories again and again. And so for me, what you touched on there was like this expanding emotional capacity is also expanding my ability to be able to manifest more into my reality, because I've got
100%.
more space to be able to hold more dreams, bigger desires, etc.
100%, man. Your the way you articulate is beautiful, absolute beautiful. It's heaps of things came up for me when you were saying that. It's like you're trying to drive your car whilst looking in the rearview mirror. It's what you run away from, you run into. So anything you haven't healed from, I've got
That's great.
It's an iteration of Peter Crone's quote. He says, "You will attract people and circumstances to reveal where you are not free." Yep. I've shifted it for my vocabulary is you will attract people and circumstances to reveal where you haven't healed. So whatever trauma you haven't healed from, what you run away from, you run into. I use the example. If I say, don't look for a yellow bus, what are you thinking about?
Right. So it's the first thing that comes up. Yeah.
So I'll use the example of trauma. Is say a tiger attacks me right now, and that's trauma.
I want to stop you. Let's do this trauma piece, but I'd like you to define trauma, because I love how you speak to this piece. So start with that and then bring the tiger.
Yeah, for sure. So for me, trauma is a trait or a behavior. It's something that was too much or not enough. If someone did something or didn't do something that was painful, wrong, too much, or not enough. The biggest mentor who's had the most amount of influence on me is Dr. John DeMartini, and he talks about perceptions and lopsided perceptions a lot. So it's a trait or a behavior that you have a lopsided perception towards. Something was bad, wrong, shouldn't have happened. I didn't like it. It was too much or not enough. And it's a very human, because we are humans with our meat suits, as you said earlier, it's our human perception upon a very real thing from a human's perspective. Makes sense. So that's why I start with empathy. I totally understand where you're coming from. However, it's if I use the I rephrase it to land harder, but there's a quote, there's a scene in the movie Evan Almighty, and Morgan Freeman plays God in this movie, and this woman's complaining about life, and she says, Morgan Freeman, he doesn't say these words, but I'll share the message broadly. He says, when you ask God for strength, he doesn't give you strength. He gives you problems and challenges to make you strong. When you wish for love, you don't get given love. You get given often people being unloving towards you. When you wish for patience, you don't get given patience. You get given situations to make you patient. So the traits and behaviors that we think are bad, they're only bad because you don't see the other side to it. I wouldn't be the healer that I am today if it wasn't from the hurt my dad gifted me with many years ago. So that's what trauma is. It's a trait or a behavior that we think are bad. And what you run away from, you run into. So whatever things you haven't healed from, I'll use the tiger again. So let's use the tiger. So the tiger attacks me right now in my room. I get it. Let's call that trauma. Say I don't heal from that tiger. I then live my entire life trying to not look for a tiger. And what am I doing? I'm attracting it. You're manifesting it because your brain doesn't understand the double negative. I'm going to try not look for a tiger. So you're looking for a fucking tiger. Let's use trauma words for most people: rejection, abandonment, neglect, criticism, anger, selfishness. List goes on. There's 4,628 traits that human beings can display. So whatever ones you think are bad, wrong, that were painful in generally childhood, because we're more sensitive in childhood, those are the things that we're constantly trying to avoid. So if you're getting to a common one for me, one of my personal ones was rejection, but also abandonment resonates with a lot of people. So I'll use those words for this example. So there's, say you got abandoned or rejected in childhood, and that was painful. Mum and dad weren't there for you, that you come home from, and these are like the examples that some people don't recognize. It's not just you got sexually abused, mentally abused, attacked, mum and dad, whatever. There's the quote big T traumas and other T traumas. Yes. But this can be an example of it. You're at school and you're 5 years old. You're prep school year 1, and you're spending all day making this little painting. Looks like shit because you're 5 years old, but you're so excited about it and you're so proud of it. And then you run home to see mum and dad, and you go to mum and dad. Oh my God, mum and dad, look at this beautiful painting. I just spent all day doing this and la la la. And then mum and dad are stressed because they just had something. They just had a fight that you didn't know about. Finances are stressful. Something's happened at work, and they say to little Johnny, we're busy. Leave us alone. I'll come back to you later. Rejection. They just got rejected in that moment. So now rejection's painful, and now I'm going to try avoid being rejected. That's literally the catalyst that can set you on your course. So now little Johnny's living life trying to not get rejected. But you don't see things the way they are. You see things the way you are. So you will see things to fit the mold of what you believe. It's called a confirmation bias. You find things to reaffirm the things that you believe. So say, for example, let's use rejection. Say you break up with someone. I'll use an example. So whatever you haven't healed from, you try to avoid it and you try to be the opposite of it. So let's use rejection again. So say you were rejected and that's a wound of yours. So you don't get rejected again, a common coping mechanism that people use is they will try to put everyone else's needs ahead of their own so people don't reject them. That's called people pleasing. And I know this one very well because that was me for a long time.
Me too,
So
brother.
I don't get rejected. I'm going to put everyone's needs ahead of my own and over-deliver, be over-friendly and all these things. And it's my protection mechanism, my coping strategy, my trauma response of me trying to avoid that pain again. Past hurt creates future fear. So that's kind of, so the three pieces that I normally start my spiel with is trauma is the trait or behavior that was painful, wrong, too much, or not enough. Second is a coping mechanism. It's what we do, it's what we develop to overcompensate, protect, hide, and overcome the trauma. Third is a trigger. A trigger is something that perceives or reminds you of the trauma and activates the coping mechanism. Nothing triggers you, it reveals what's inside of you. That's probably my most used quote. So that's why when you get triggered, you want to be present. Now, it can be limiting beliefs, so there's a bit of crossover here, but I'll say with trauma for now. So when you get triggered, someone is doing or being something that is reminding you of something that you haven't healed from. So when your partner is busy and they don't respond to you, or you have an argument and they walk away from you, they just rejected you. And then that triggers you back into your coping mechanism. And that's where we mentioned relationships a fair few times. That's where relationships are the best mirror to you because they see you more than anyone else. We've met each other for an hour now. And I would love to keep this relationship off air, by the way. But
thank you, bro.
If you don't see me to the degree my wife does. Like, she sees me when the dog's pissed on the carpet, when we've had financial pressure, when I haven't had enough sleep. I got sick the other week and I had a vomit at I woke up at midnight and had a vomit. So the next day I was a bit irritable. It's like you don't see those sides to me that she does. So just by proximity and her reflecting my shit back to me gifts me with the awareness of where they are so I can integrate and heal them. And that's kind of trauma in a nutshell. So you will attract people and circumstances to reveal where you haven't healed. What you run away from, you run into. There's so many more layers to it, so I don't know where to keep going with it. I'll tie it into leadership. You will try and not be these traits and behaviors. Let's use rejection. I say you're a leader right now, and you've got a team, and one of your team is being shit. They're not a great performer. But you're avoiding a tough conversation because you don't want to reject them. I don't want to reject this person because that's a bad thing to do. I did this. I literally, I used to own gyms, as I alluded to earlier. And I remember I had a guy, I hired him. he was the manager of the gym, and he was not the right fit. And I had at the time, I had 100 grand cash that I just saved up. I put all my nuts away and screwed them away. 100 grand cash is like a safety bucket for the business. And he was not performing. And the business was losing money every single week. It took me until the business, and I wanted to fire him. He wasn't the right fit. He didn't make sense. He was just not aligned, not the right person for the role. I waited until I had $3,000 left in the bank account, where literally, if he didn't, so I had an excuse to fire him because I was too scared to reject him. I'm like, I don't want to reject this person. I don't want to be that person because it's bad, because it's just my projection of my shit. So I literally waited till like the business couldn't. I remember this conversation like it was about 6 years ago. I said, hey man, look, I'm so sorry, but the business actually can't afford you right now. We're going to have to let you go. Not, hey, you're actually the wrong person. I just want to be real honest with you, because I was still trying to avoid that rejection piece.
Yeah.
So it shows up in leadership. It shows up in relationships. It shows up in everything. All the things that you haven't healed from, your trauma, your wounds, your limitations, those parts of you, you're going to run away from them. You're going to run into them. You're going to project them onto others. You're going to judge others for them. You're going to shame yourself for it. So whatever, because the thing is, we all do all traits. That's kind of the slap in the face for a lot of people, because you've done these traits. You just try to hide it. And then when you actually do it, you'll shame yourself for it. So when you actually do reject someone, you beat yourself up for it. So it gets real deep, and there's heaps of layers to it, but that's a big spiel for you to sit with.
Well, dude, we have a similar piece in the people pleasing, and I've looked back on it and noticed that core wound of the fear of rejection has played out in my life. I don't know where the initial wound was, but I do know that when I moved from one school in South Africa to another school, they started school an entire year later. And as a youngster, I think I must have been maybe 10. Everybody in the school in my grade was like 11, so they're a full year older than me. And in wanting to try and find how to fit into this layer, this social group of boys on the playground, I was doing whatever I could. And youngest and smallest at that age, I wasn't quite sure how to do it. And just by, I don't know, luck or God or a soul contract, my girlfriend at the time decided she wanted to go behind the bike shed and French kiss me. That was the first time I'd ever decided that this would be a good idea. So I went on this adventure, and I came back to the playground and I told these boys who were a year older than me, but the same grade, I was like, hey, I just French kissed this girl. And in that moment, I was accepted in a way that I had been seeking the validation so much. In that moment, that became a coping strategy for me, which played out throughout my life into sex addiction, which was this coping mechanism as well, which, again, the underlying fear of not being rejected. When I didn't feel like I was enough, I would fall into the arms of a beautiful woman or into the bed of a beautiful woman. And then suddenly, for those few moments or hours, however long we were together, suddenly I'm okay because this person hasn't rejected me. But that core wound has been alive in me for, it's going to be my work to do. And it's got me to this place of sharing this work. But I think people pleasing, for sure, I have that. But then the other part for me specifically, and what happens for others as well, the fear of rejection can also lead to like over hypersexuality or hyper intimacy, to be like, oh, I'm not enough. And then as long as someone's not rejecting me, then I am okay. And so that's definitely been a theme for me.
I love the self-awareness, man. If you want to, we can do a little bit of a process on that. We won't do the full process because that takes a while. But if you're open to it, I'd love to take you through a bit of a rebalancing and integrating of that if you want to.
I'd love to. Let's go.
So perceptions are made in moments and they're rebalanced in moments. So the perception that rejection is bad, whenever you want to heal, and this is just a side note before we get into it, a lot of people, and I used to think this too, is to do healing work, you have to find like the earliest childhood stuff that happened. A lot of people can't remember their childhood because it was painful. So you don't actually need to. If you do know them though, they are really beautiful to do the processes on. So just for a side note for people that are like, oh my God, I can't remember my childhood. You don't need to. You just need a moment where you got triggered and you had a mirror moment of the trait or the behavior. I say any trigger is an opening to the wound. So you need an opening moment to get into that reflection to rebalance it. That's all you need to do. So if you're okay with me, so you need to find, you actually gave me the moment where you actually got the you got the coping mechanism sort of scratched. But can you, I like using parents. Which parent, I'm assuming, gave you has rejected you? Which one comes to mind?
Maybe my mom.
Perfect. Now close your eyes, and I want you to go to a moment. Earlier the better, but you don't have to go the earliest. A moment where mum rejected you.
Something's coming up, but I don't know if it's specifically that, like a
And this is
rejection
perfect.
piece.
So just go whatever comes up, and I'll show you how we can finesse it. Because
Okay.
talk about like surrounding traits or cousin traits. Because it might be rejection, it might be dismissed, it might be invalidated. Because you actually used the word validation earlier, so you might have an invalidation wound as well. Because whatever we pit, whatever we pit, we pedestal the opposite. Whatever we pedestal, we pit the opposite. So whatever the things that I try to validate others because I got invalidated before. Because you used that
Right.
word validation earlier. So.
Yeah.
So just tell me the moment that come up, and I'll be able to zoom in for you. So then, even you become aware specifically what the wound is, because it might be a cousin wound or a surrounding trait.
So what came up for me when I thought about it was this moment of like lying on the lounge floor crying because we were moving to another state. Like we were moving, and there was this place of big change in my world. So it wasn't specifically rejection, but there was the sense of having been given some bad news about the changing environment in which I was in. So
Close
probably
your eyes
more
for
lack
me.
of safety.
Close your eyes and go to that specific moment. Your intuition, and you know this better than most because this is the work that you do. Your heart and intuition knows the answers better than your head. So I want you to go to that exact moment where you're lying on the couch. And what did mum do or not do specifically where you had that emotion come up, or you got triggered, or you felt that hurt, or whatever came up for you?
Absence.
Absence. So you have an
That she
absence
wasn't there.
wound.
Yeah.
Awesome. So go to that specific moment where you perceived her displaying the trait of absence. What did she do or not do?
She's not there for me.
So what did she say or do or not do in that moment? That's a general answer. I just want to zoom in a little bit more.
She doesn't comfort me. She doesn't feel the pain that this new transition has on me.
What does she say specifically? Now, just trust your intuition. You might not know the exact words she said, but what intuitively comes through for you?
What she should have said, or she wasn't there. So in this moment, she's actually not present. She's not there.
Cool. So this will just be a thought or a perception that you've thought of. So what did you think of specifically to recognize she wasn't there? She was absent. What did you tell yourself? What did you think of specifically? What did you see?
Yeah, like a lack of love, a lack of awareness of what I was going through.
So what I want you, and just for yourself and for people listening, the more present and specific you get to the moment, because it's a mirror moment. There'll be a moment specifically where you saw something, you thought of something, you said something to yourself. You probably didn't have a phone back then, but it's like I had a moment with a client recently where it was rejection, and it was she had texted a partner that they were like kind of friends with benefits, and he said, "I'll get back to you when I'm ready." And then she woke up like a week later, and she like woke up early because she was super anxious to see what happened. She went and grabbed her phone, checked her phone, and there was no message there. So the moment that she saw there was no message there, rejection. That was the moment. So we want to go to that specific moment where just you labeled your mum as being absent. So did you think something? You saw something? You looked at something? Did someone say something in the room? There'd be a thought you had like, "Oh my god, I have to move school again," or something like that.
Yeah, I remember lying on the floor and I'm hitting my arms on the ground, and I'm aware that I'm moving to a new place where the whole family needs to move, and she's not there.
Beautiful. So go to that specific moment when you're lying on the ground, you're hitting your arms on the ground.
Yep.
And you say to yourself, "I have to move."
We've been told that we're moving. We've been told that we're going to move. I'm going to have to go to a new school. Yeah, and I'm on the floor crying, but I'm alone, so there's nobody there.
So in that exact moment when you're alone on the ground and you recognize that we have to move schools, and you recognize your mum is absent in that moment, in that exact moment, you can only use one word answers. In that exact moment, what did you summon within yourself to overcome your mum being absent? Let your heart answer it. Take a big breath in. In that exact moment when your mum was absent, you're on the ground, you're hitting your arms on the ground, your mum is absent in that moment. In that exact moment, what did you summon within yourself to overcome your mum? Independence, beautiful. List them out. Independence, keep going.
Growing up.
Right, say that in one word.
Maturing. Self-responsibility.
Keep going.
Ask the question again.
In that exact moment, when mum was absent, what did you summon within yourself to overcome her acting that way?
Toughness.
What else?
Like a hardening.
Beautiful. What else?
Wow, it's so trippy.
That's right. Take a breath in and your intuition. Just a side note, your intuition is your soul, body, heart, self-balancing or healing mechanism. That's why if you go through something, you keep thinking about it years and years later because your intuition is trying to process it. The questions I'm asking you right now is just helping your intuition do it faster. So that's where hindsight, it's like you go through something in a day, a week, a month, 10 years, 20, 30 years later, something lands, oh my God, I recognize that my dad doing that to me has helped me become the man I am today. So this is just speeding that process up. So you got independence, maturing, self-responsibility, toughness, hardening. What else did you summon within yourself? What were the lessons? What were the benefits to you in that exact moment for your mum being absent? And how has it served you to this day?
On reflection or in the moment? Like I can reflect back, I know what they are.
So there's a couple of ways you can ask the question. One is in the moment, and then you can also say from that moment until today, how has it served you?
I've been against something against authority. Like I was always going to be on my own. I've chosen the path of entrepreneurship. There was some sense of not trusting anybody. Like I just trust myself. So self-trust.
Self-trust, beautiful. I heard intuitively then self-awareness. Is that true to you?
Yeah, I think so.
Perfect. And when I'm doing this process, I can't tell clients answers. I need to let you answer it yourself, but I can throw answers.
No, there was an awareness that I needed to do this on my own, and that I was tracking something that was alive in me there.
Perfect. Now, just for a side note, I don't move on till we do 20. We've got 2, 4, 6, 7, but just for, obviously we're on a podcast right now. So I just want to keep your eyes closed, and I just want to read these out to you. So independence, maturing, self-responsibility, toughness, hardening, self-trust, and awareness, self-awareness. Would you give up these parts of who you are?
Never.
Absolutely not. Because these are some of your greatest gifts, right?
Yeah.
Who gifted
Rebellious
you some of these
is in there
gifts?
as well.
What did you say, sorry?
Rebellious, like the rebel in me.
Beautiful. Who gifted you these gifts?
Who gifted me these gifts? My mother.
So your mother gifted you with some of your greatest gifts that you wouldn't give up about yourself. Now, there's 13 questions. I'm just doing one of them right now for you. In that moment, independence. So in that moment when you were on the ground and your mum was absent, in that exact moment back then, did your mum have these gifts to the degree that you have them today?
No.
Perfect. So we get taught things in two ways. We get given what someone has, or we get given what they don't have. You were gifted these gifts because your mum didn't have them. Your mum gave you everything that she wanted, but she never got them. So she gifted them to you. Do you see that and feel that? That your mum gave you everything that you have today, and you get to be the man, the leader. And isn't this all the things that you help your men with?
Yeah.
So she's helped you become the man you are today with all the gifts that you have. And for you to then give that impact and gifts back to others by her doing exactly what she was meant to do for you.
So good.
And there's 12 other questions, but that's like the juicy one. So I like doing that one.
Wow, man. So good.
And when you get into your heart, then there's like, because what we just did was quite a mental one. You probably you're in touch, so you probably got it felt in your heart a bit more than the average person. But what I like to do is you actually mentioned one of the bodies, the emotional body. So there's 5 bodies to heal through in inner work. There's the mental body, which is like judgment, resentment, limiting beliefs, conscious, unconscious stuff. There's the emotional body, which is what you mentioned, and I think something you'll be quite strong at, is your nervous system and your suppressed emotions. So I normally do. The next question would be an emotional one where I'll get you to feel the emotions more to get it through your heart and your nervous system, not just your head. You got it in your heart a bit because you're quite in tune, so you would have got that quite well. There's the physical body, that's somatics. So that's where somatic work and physical work comes into it. There's the spiritual body, that's where the medicines and the ceremonies and the meditations come into it. And then there's the energetic body. That's where your Reiki healing, your sound healing, your energy healers, your Qigongs, and all those come into it. And it's about integrating all of these bodies into a holistic healing, because you may know some people who they do some plant medicine and it changes their life, and then they're doing plant medicine every second weekend because they just need to sit with the medicine over and over and over again, but they haven't touched the other bodies yet. They need to integrate the other pieces. My work that I love is a quote from Bruce Lee. He says, "There's no ultimate martial art, only the ultimate martial artist." who knows every martial art and knows when to pull from the right one at the right time to get the right result. For me, I see myself as someone who's striving to become the ultimate martial artist, where I've tried 20 different modalities as a client. I've done 9 certifications in different modalities, so I can touch on every body. So that the question I just did with you just then, that's one step within a 13-step process of my balancing process, where we balance those traits, but I integrate DeMartini, timeline therapy, hypnotherapy, NLP, negative emotional release techniques, and a bit of breath work as well through the whole process. So I touch on all of those bodies. So that's why I have I just got goosebumps thinking of them. I've got testimonials from clients that have said they've done therapy for 30 plus years. There was one in particular. She got trigger warning for the guys listening. She got sexually abused from her dad for 5 years, and physically, sexually, emotionally, all the above. And she has this beautiful post inside my community. She's in my community group. And she said there's like a spiritual, physical release as well that she has. Like her asthma goes away, she's healed. But the punchline of the story is she says, to say I love my dad is something I never thought could be possible, considering she was bedridden 8 years ago in so much pain. She says, I've done 30 plus years of trauma therapy and this hasn't healed it. After this one process, I'm so full of gratitude for my dad. And uses there's about 6 modalities into the one modality. It's the ultimate martial artist, putting them all together. And it's beautiful. And then the resistance to the trait. So for you would get triggered when someone displays the trait of absence to you. Now, you might have done some work on it already, so it's probably less than the average person. But back in the day, when you felt absent or someone was absent from you, like you said, you'd go to the women, you'd jump in the bed with them. And I resonate to that, by the way. That I had similar coping mechanisms. And that will continue to trigger you until you integrate and heal it, remove the emotional charge towards it. And then when the wound's healed, it doesn't trigger you anymore. Then the next one pops up, and then we do that one then. And that's the evolution of healing.
Where does sexual energy and sexual healing fit into those modalities that you spoke into? Which body do you recognize that? Is it separate, or is it part of the emotional body, or where do you see it?
I've done a little bit of it. So I did Reiki healing, and she kind of uses like the tantric bodies and the tantric pathways and the tantric touches. It's probably outside of my genius. I've tried it, so that's one of the 20 that I've tried. I would say I would go into the energy body, and probably the modalities touch on many bodies, right?
Yeah, of course.
That would go. I would assume, and definitely energetic, because there's a stored energy within your body. I'd say somatic, because physical touching. And I would say probably emotional too, if there's suppressed emotion, because a lot of people have a lot of shame and guilt and suppressed emotions around sex, especially. So, which I certainly did when I was younger. So I would say those. I wouldn't say it would be too much mental, maybe. Depends on the person. Like I've done mental processes with people, and they have like a physical healing, like the pain in their calf,
because all those bodies are all connected. It's just different layers of vibration.
Yeah. So there's ones that are obviously more geared towards certain things. Like a negative emotional release process is going to release suppressed emotions, but then that might you might, oh my god, I had all this that my resentment to dad that I kept holding on to has gone away. Great. So it's a bit of a mental process. So yeah, I would say, to answer your question, probably definitely energetic, definitely somatic and physical, definitely emotional. I don't think too much spiritual or mental, but again, it may cross over into it depending on the person.
Yeah. You said you had one of the edges you were working on right now was the sell from stage, and then you said because of what comes with that, I'd love to hear what you think. What are you tracking in yourself around that?
I'm still trying to find the trait. So this is I'm leaning into it. I definitely think there's a bit of exposure therapy to it. So I did one event last month. I've got one 7 days from now. So 7 days from now, we'll be kicking off actually 7:30 on a Saturday, next Saturday for me. So 7 days from now, we'll be kicking off again. And it's a good question. So the questions that I've been asking myself is, what's the part of me I'm scared to be seen? What's the part of me that I judge myself for? Those are the some of the questions that you can ask yourself. For me, it was sleazy. I think that came up. So I don't want to be a sleazy salesperson. Guilting, shaming, manipulating, those things. I've done processes on those. So originally it came up. I think it was honestly exposing myself to it, because you haven't done it before. It's like that unknown part of it. Definitely the sleazy part had come up. The manipulation, I've done a process on both of those.
What about your fear of rejection?
I've done a process, and that was one of my first ones. I'm okay with that. It's the I think it's failure actually. Now that I'm dropping into it, it was the what if I sell and no one buys, and then I'm a failure. So it's the failure piece. So that's the one that's coming through for me right now. And it was like because even when I did it, because we had 57 people in the room and I had 5 people buy. It's like when as soon as the first person bought, I was like, okay, we're good now. It's like okay, I'm not a total failure, right? So yeah, that's thank you for the reflection. So mine would be failure. So
yeah, it's an interesting one to look at. There's something in the sleazy sales piece that I think is, I have it as well. There's also something for me in the gifts that I've been given shouldn't be monetized, or that healing work should be free, like some story like that. Yeah, and I've spent some time on this. There's been a few things that have supported me. One of them is that the transformation doesn't happen until the transaction occurs. Like there's something in that statement for me which was like, oh fuck yes. And I've seen it in myself. Like I can watch stuff for free all day, but when I spend 10 grand on a coaching program, I'm fully in. And I've said this before to clients. You can do $100 weekend where you teach the same stuff with the same energy as Tony Robbins, but when you pay 5 grand for the same weekend, you value it differently, and your mind is inherently looking for value in a way that's not there. So that's been a really important piece for me. And the second was, I don't know if you know Jesse Elder. I just did a coaching container with him, and he says that the coaching component is actually the reward that you get for enrolling somebody into the program, but the real service is in the sale, because that's when the person makes the decision to step into a different timeline.
Yeah, 100%.
And hearing him say that, sales is service has been a really important piece for me, because I'm like, oh, I'm a great coach and I can do all of this stuff. But if you don't get people in your programs, you're not making any transformation. And so, yeah, that reframe has been something that I've been, it's an energetic knot that I've been working through my own system.
Thank you, bro. And I appreciate the reflection. I just did a business event last 2 days, and a line that really stood out to me is like, until you're absolutely, completely committed to your mission, you will pussyfoot around the sales. You're like, but if you're absolutely committed to it, like you know how much you're going to change people's lives and how much impact your mission, your service, your coaching, your gift is going to literally save someone's life. Yep. Literally save it from divorce, from breakup, from suicide, from all the pain that they're experiencing. Until you really get that, you're going to pussyfoot around the sale. You're going to be not okay sending the tension. Stop. I'm scared of being judged. I'm scared of being projected on. I don't want to be a salesperson. So I literally heard that yesterday. So that was good timing for me. But there's still, for me, there's like the step into it and do it. It's like easy to intellectually understand it, but it's for me, I'm a big reps person as well. Like get as many reps into it as you can. So after like compared to a good sort of speaking tip that I got from the same mentor, he said, whenever you do any form of public speaking or events or whatever you're doing, it's your edge +1. So what are you comfortable with +1, whatever you're comfortable with +1. So it's like compared to my first sales pitch that I did last weekend, I've already like been mentally sitting with how can I go deeper into that? How can I look everyone in the eye who's committed, who wants it, and initiate them with a place of love and not pressure and not guilting, because I've got that integral part of I don't want to guilt people into doing this, because then that energetically you don't want to work with that type of energy. So it's how do I initiate them with love, with firmness, with that support and challenge piece of like, if you really want this, you tell me you want this. How many times have you asked? How many times have you asked there's a story that an old mentor of mine used to share for a sales pitch. Is like, there's this, these people are drowning at sea, and they're praying to God, God, please help me. God, please help me. God, please help me. And then this boat sails past and said, hey guys, we're here to help you. And he said, no. I've asked God. God's going to look after me. And then the boat goes away. And then they're like, God, please help me. God, please help me. God, please help me. And then a helicopter comes across to save them. He's like, guys, we're here to help you. They're like, no. I'm waiting for God. God's going to look after me. And then these people end up drowning and dying. And then they go up to heaven. They see God. They're like, God, like, what happened, man? I was asking for all this help. It's like, mate, I sent you a boat. I sent you a helicopter. You didn't listen. It's like that analogy of like, you've been asking for the growth. You've been asking for you to have the things that you want. Are you listening to the signs that the universe is giving you? So that really landed for me. So kind of just externally processing my own journey right now with selling. So I appreciate that.
There's something in what you shared there, bro. You nailed it at the beginning of this podcast, which is you can sit and meditate and future state all day long about the, business that you want to create or the $1 million year that you want to have in your business, the internal work. And then you need to go out and take inspired action on the outside. So it's like that balance between the actual hustle culture integrated into a place of genuine healing and alignment with what you've been called to do. And you can't just do one without the other, and if depending on which polarity you're in, you have people that hustle too much that perhaps don't find meaning, or people that are really committed to their meaning but they're broke because they're not putting in the reps, like you said, to actually get on stage and to make offers and to get punched in the face and then get back up again and do it again and again and again until you feel like you're on point with it.
Mate, you give me so many goosebumps, man. I love your energy, your mindset, heaps of alignment with us, man. So French kiss. Thank you.
Thank you, bro. Before I let you go, brother, I want to ask you about your adventure with your beloved to becoming a dad. What are you most excited about? What are you most anxious about?
I do plant medicine. I do mushrooms every 3 to 6 months. It's more at 6 months these days. It used to be like sort of 3 months. But I did one, I think it was about midway through last year. So midway through 2024. And big drop in was like, I'm ready to be a dad. Like, I'm ready for it emotionally, financially.
Was that clear before? Was that the first time that landed?
I know I wanted it, but it wasn't. There was always like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. So it dropped in that I'm ready. But then like the polarity, then all this fear and anxiety came up around it. I'm like, holy shit. Like, because I'm the gift of the Asperger's mind, a part to me is very structured. Like I love structure. Like structure for me gives me the rules to play within. But there's obviously the chaos part that comes with kids. So the chaos and the like, I'm working right now. Like say, obviously, I'd be set. I'll have systems and structure to allow for said chaos. But it's like that fear of just being able to handle the chaos that comes with kids. So that was the biggest part that honestly freaked me out. The finances, I think I've spoken to a lot of men that I respect and I've got love for, and they all said the same thing. It's like, you're never ready financially. There's always like, you can always have more. You can always have more. So I'm in a position where I can comfortably look after it, but I'm always like, but I need more. So that story's definitely run its line, but I'm comfortable with that now. And yeah, the biggest fear that came up for me was the chaos part and the fear part of the just being able to handle the chaos and the emotions and the just shit that comes with it. You don't know what you don't know. That's the part that I'm still sitting with. But the balance of that is being able to just be totally okay and strengthening the ability just to be present. Just what does this moment need from me? And being able to disconnect from work. There's no formulas, that's no work. There's no NLP. There's no fucking modality. It's like presence. Like that. What is this? There's a good friend of mine. He's a men's coach. Actually, he'd be a really good fit for this show if you want to have him on. And his name's Jacob O'Neill. And he says, he was using an example of relationships, but he also applies it to parenting. It's like, throw the formulas and the modalities out the window. What does this moment need from you right now? So just being able to practice more of that, because I am such a structured modalities. Like you'll notice the way I teach, I'll come back to frameworks that I've come up with and structures I've come up with versus like, you can't use that with kids. Like you just got to be present, love them, regulate with them, connect with them, be present with them. So I'm excited for, it's like the chaos, fear, but the growth of that exact thing is the one I'm most excited for, but most fearful of. It's like, say like they're crying their eyes out and like, I'm so present and I'm here for you. I'm trying to regulate with you, but they keep crying. It's like, fuck, what do I do now? What's the answer? What's the
You can give them your 3 steps of trauma.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So that's like my structured mind's trying to solve an unstructured answer. So that's still definitely present. Like I'm smiling as we talk through it because that's still there. Because again, you don't know what you don't know. So I know the growth that's going to come with it from everyone that I've seen, from my clients, from people that I respect, my mentors. The biggest reflections you'll ever have is relationships and children. So intimate relationships and children, then I'd put business as the third. So, brother, I'm just excited for to be able to sit with chaos, be able to be present within what's needed to be present with, to be able to be okay not being able to use all my modalities and formulas and structures and frameworks, and because you can't. So I'm excited to be able to learn how to just be super present and playful and loving, and just that side of me is probably something I haven't needed to embody as much outside of a relationship, and I obviously still do it there, but it's like, from what I've been told and from what I feel, it's just another fucking level into that. So I'm excited to delve into that.
Bro, you're going to be an amazing father, man, and I'm so grateful that you're going on that journey because, I think the amount of work you've done, the service, and the being that you are, I think it's going to be amazing to watch what you steward into this world through a little one. So kudos on that adventure.
Thank you.
One last thing, I heard you speak really beautifully about feminine and the nature of the feminine being an ocean and how that can show up in masculinity. If you know the for real that I'm talking about, I'd love you to share that here just in closing.
Yeah, for me, I don't do too much work in it. I understand it. I've got my level of understanding to it, I'll say. So for me, my perception of the masculine is being able to have stability, have direction, have purpose, have meaning, have hold a safe space. And then the feminine is the beauty, attraction, magnetizing, but also chaotic side to what it is. And it's been able to, the ultimate test for me of the masculine from the feminine. So the ultimate test from the feminine to the masculine is testing how much capacity that you have and how much you can handle. I heard Aubrey Marcus just say it in passing on a podcast. He said, a stable mountain can handle any storm. Back to that sailor example, like a calm ocean never made a great sailor. So it's been able to, when I said earlier on the podcast as well, when someone says you're being too emotional, what they're actually saying is, I just don't have the capacity to handle you. So it's been able to love the feminine, and for anyone that's in relationships with the feminine, and obviously that's not men nor women, it's feminine, masculine, because we all have both pieces. There's feminine men, there's masculine women. But if you're a masculine, the most testing you're going to have is from the feminine throwing their chaos at you, throwing the emotions at you, throwing the challenges at you to test you. Now, I disclaim that that's not permission to just go be an asshole to your partner and just be mean to your partner for no reason, right? It's just like things will come up. You don't have to do anything. Just life will happen the way it's meant to happen. And then the test of the feminine. I probably can't speak too much because I see myself more on the masculine side. I would say, the test for the feminine is being able to receive and surrender to the masculine's direction and purpose and meaning and love. So it's that sort of dance together. I'd have one module that I teach this for with clients with relationships, but it's just knowing which one that you are at your core, knowing how to live that and embody that to a higher degree. So to be more masculine, to have more structure, have more purpose, have more goals, have more work on your health, challenge yourself, grow. And the feminine to be more surrendering, more connecting, more loving to self, to heart, to body, and just having those practices to be able to sit within it. And on the side note as well, it's like being able to also have the range of having both, being able to sit more in your feminine, and for the masculine, and for the masculine to the feminine, sorry, to sit more in the masculine, not go be someone that you're not, but have the range to do that if you need to.
Exactly. Yeah, so good, brother. So we're going to link up all your deets in the show notes, but I'd love you to just share where people can connect with you, what you're excited about right now. I know you're building an online community. You've got your book. Just speak into those before we send you on your way, bro.
Thank you, bro. I just want to say thank you for the conversation, man. It's really beautiful to connect with conscious people that are doing meaningful work. And it's like you can't fake someone's energy. Like you can't fake if you've done the work or not. Like you can, social media, you can. Like you may have had some guests on, or you've met people where social media and them in person don't really align. So it's really beautiful.
So difficult. Yeah.
So it's beautiful just to be in your presence, man. I've really enjoyed this conversation. So just want to
really appreciate it. Thank you.
Pleasure. For me, main ways you can work with me, I've got a conscious community where I teach all this stuff: values, purpose, mission, vision, trauma, limiting beliefs, planning. There's a relationship chapter. There's a business chapter to make money doing what you love. There's weekly calls, blah, blah, blah. But that's probably the best. That's the deepest way you can work with me as of now. Instagram, my website, it's all Lewis Huckstep. Just type my name in there, it'll pop up somewhere. And my book is an easy way to do it. So it's called The Inspired Life Method. So it's on Amazon, Kindle, Audible. I think it's like $1 or $2 on Kindle or Audible. Try to just make it cheap so everyone can grab it. And then I do in-person events, but that's obviously exclusive to the Gold Coast. So if you're in Australia, or you're willing to travel to Australia, want to come hang out with me for a day or 3 days, we'd love to meet you.
Well, brother, I haven't got plans to go to Australia, but when I do, we're going to definitely hang out, bro. And if you ever make it to Latin America, you've got a space
Thank you, bro.
to come and visit in Guatemala. And yeah, bro, thank you for the work that you're doing, both internally for yourself, but also how you're serving others. It's so needed. Appreciate you, bro.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you for having me today. And I've got a ton of people. If you want some guests, I've got a ton of people that would match your vibe as well. That you can
Thank you,
come
man.
on.
I'm going to connect with you offline here and definitely ask you for Scott's details, Jacob O'Neill you shared with me, and I've got a couple more notes. But thank you. I'd love that.
Thank you, bro.
Much love.